This week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by Dhani Mansworth of The Treatment.
And then we were on tour with Steel Panther, and we were literally in the back of the transit van getting a meal deal or something like that. And then Nicky Six put out on his Twitter, The Treatment are going to be the opening band for the biggest tour of the year with Kiss and Motley Crue. Welcome them aboard. We just couldn't believe it. And then we're sitting there, and then Gene comes in, like in his full makeup, and stands behind my dad. And I'm seeing this, Dad isn't seeing this, and I've seen this. I'm like, oh my God, it's Gene. And then he just come up behind my dad and started giving him a shoulder massage. He's like,
hello and welcome to Beyond the Vibe, the show that cuts deep into the world of music.
My name is Aaron Day, UK guitarist in These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here with music videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Vasey. How you doing, Mr. Vasey? All right?
Oh, good, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm excited to have Dhani from The Treatment, who's our guest this week, because we were chatting like when we first met and going through different bands, and we were both very into that rock sound they had in the beginning, weren't we? You know, I mean, no discredit to obviously the journey they've been on, but obviously they've changed the sound a little bit as bands do. They develop and they grow, you know. But that first album, This Might Hurt, was killer for me, man. What about you?
Yeah, it was one of those where like I saw. I think it was like the original video for The Doctor. Like they've got a different one up now, but there was one. I've forgotten what it was actually. It was like a more simple version.
Right. The one I can think of is almost like comic book. Like I remember having a green background.
Yes.
And being quite intense. A lot of green screen.
Yeah, but there was one previous that they've taken
a bit more
down.
stripped down.
Yeah, it was like a real basic one. But yeah, I found them then, and just kind of followed them through that. I think that was like what 2008.
It feels 2007, 2008, because it was kind of at that wave of Airborne, Jet Black, all these sort of like very 70s, 80s inspired bands, and The Treatment. Obviously, there's that. With Danny's dad, Laurie obviously was involved in Roadstar Heaven's Basement. I think this was an evolution of that because the Roadstar stuff was a bit more 70s, a bit more Aerosmith, whereas I think The Treatment's got more of that 80s tinge to it, which is obviously you can hear definitely with that new single.
Yes.
Rat Race. Proper Def Leppard vibes. But it's cool, I like it. It works.
Yeah, they've got the new album coming out, Waiting for Good Luck. What do you reckon? Do you think it's going to be a change of pace? Or?
It feels like they've every album they develop. You still get the initial foundation of what makes The Treatment. That's that Treatment sound, but I think they develop and grow a little bit. Obviously, there's a bit more backing vocals on this one. There's a bit more of that 80s tinge sound. I think for me, what I'd be interested for The Treatment to do is, as much as it's cool that they continue to develop, I'd like them to retain the sound and grow on that sound a little bit. There's always that Treatment voice and sound, particularly with the vocalists. With this new vocalist, he's got a lot more of that original vocalist. But for me, it'd be cool for them to retain a core identity and maybe grow on that a little bit. That's what I'd like to see from a fan's perspective. But some people like that variety. Some people like going on the journey with the band. We're all different.
I mean, it was interesting the conversation that we've had that you're going to hear in a moment, where he dives into all of this. So you can hear that now.
So we're here with Dhani, drummer and founding member of Cambridge Rockers, The Treatment. Thanks for joining us, brother.
no worries. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad.
So like getting into it, let's go like right back to the beginning for you, Dhani. What brought you to playing drums in the first place?
Well, I've always grown up around music, like mainly due to my dad. You know what I mean? My dad's been a manager and a musician throughout the years. Like he played in bands like More and Air Race back in the 80s and stuff, and toured with Maiden and Queen and stuff. And then later went on to management. He managed a band called Roadstar. And then I've just always been around music, and it's like what I've always wanted to do. You know what I mean?
I bet it was kind of inevitable, wasn't it? I mean, we had a thing like, me and Ryan always joke, because our dads are probably similar to yours, where like we go near fucking hairdressers and he'd just turn up out of nowhere shaking his head like holding a Maiden LP. It's just an inevitable outcome, and I imagine it was quite similar with yourself.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like I was like spoon-fed bands like AC/DC and Maiden and stuff throughout my whole life. So like there was no chance I was going to want to do anything else.
Was your dad a guitarist then? So what?
Yeah. He was a guitar player in Moore. When he was 18. He joined a band called Moore, who signed to Atlantic Records.
Sound.
And and then after that, Moore kind of split up, and my dad left the band, and then he went on and formed Air Race with Jason Bonham.
Cool.
So yeah, he went on. He did the Queen tour. I think it was for the It's a Kind of Magic run.
Mad.
About the 80s. So he's been around a long time.
So what brought you more to playing drums rather than going the same route as your old man?
I mean, when I was really, really young, I always dreamt of becoming like the next Angus Young. You know what I mean? But then I realised what playing guitar was. that never really happened. So I ended up picking up a pair of drumsticks, and it just come really natural to me. And I thought, this is what I'm going to stick with. You know what I mean? If I can't be Angus, I'll be Phil Rudd. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. I think we all have that. I wanted to be a singer, and then my balls dropped, which is the second time I've mentioned that on this podcast. So I fucking need to stop talking about my bollocks. But yeah, you naturally find your own path, don't you?
Yeah.
Cool. So the first incarnation of the treatment was it actually called God's Sack Man?
Yeah, I mean, we're going back when we were 16, you know what I mean? When we were still really toying with the idea of being a band as opposed to wanting to do it properly, you know what I mean? It was like the GSM days, everyone used to call it. It was like us kind of filling our feet and sneaking into pubs and pretending we were 18 and playing gigs and stuff. So we look back on them days and it was just such a laugh because there was nothing serious to it, you know what I mean? It was just us with our gear, trying to get into venues, playing shows and getting pissed, you know what I mean? So them days were great, but it was only when we got a little bit older, I think it was 2010 or maybe 2009, we decided we wanted to take it properly, and we got bored of the metal thing, you know what I mean? I think the metal thing is niche at a certain part of your life, when you're 15 to 16, metal's cool and that, but eventually, you want to become more serious and progress as musicians and writers and stuff. So that's when we decided to get back to our roots of what we started listening to, AC/DC and stuff, and that's how the treatment come about.
So when you was in GSM, was it mainly just sort of covers and just kind of that? Like you say, I like the idea of it being quite innocent because I think we've all had bands like that.
We had our own songs and stuff. We had a couple of EPs and stuff. A couple of people still have them, which they keep flying about, which is funny. But it was just, you know what I mean? It was almost like the apprenticeship to being in a band, you know what I mean? Learning what it's like to be with four other guys and have that band community feeling, you know what I mean? It was almost like the stepping stone to becoming a proper band, you know what I mean? I think at that point as well, I don't think any of us would have ever been good enough to step into what we do today, you know what I mean? So it was a good learning curve for us.
Cool.
That's cool. So obviously the treatment quickly began to climb that rock and roll ladder with the first album, This Might Hurt, which we both remember really well.
Yeah, great album, man.
10 years this year.
I bet that's fucking mad, isn't it?
Yeah, we were just...
I was thinking about it the other day, cause I was 17 when we recorded the drums. It literally just feels like yesterday, you know what I mean? But it's 10 years have gone by. It's where's time going?
Well, I bet we were about the same age, weren't we? Because it's weird, because I really resonated with what you were saying about the metal thing. Because I had the same thing where I was 15, 14, I was into Trivium and whatever.
The first Dean Razorback and getting into it.
And I was looking at getting a Confederate flag one, so I'm glad I fucked off that idea.
I remember when we first went to the States, because being English, you don't really know a lot about the behind the scenes of the Confederate flag. And I think one of us it was when we had do you remember that clothing brand Stone the Crows?
Yeah.
And they had one of their shirts. They sorted us out with a load of shirts, and one of them had a Confederate flag print on it. And I remember, I don't know if it was me or Tag or someone wearing it. And one of the guys was like, "You do realise what that stands for?" And we're like, "Well, they explained to us, and we didn't wear it again." You know what I mean?
I was really I grew up with a lot of Blackfoot and Skinner and stuff like that. My old man gave me a fucking Confederate flag tobacco wallet. And I were in this pub one day, and someone went up to me and went, "You can't fucking have that." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I fucking it's a completely different thing, isn't it?
you have the misconception because Pantera flew it so regularly. Do you know what I mean? And you thought, oh, that's such a sick flag. It looks so cool. But it's only when you go into the political side of it, it's like it's not a good idea.
No, it's not best.
Yeah.
So going back to the first album, shortly after that, you obviously made that big step into supporting Motley Crue and Kiss.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you at that time? Because that's like such a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like to be honest, I think we blagged our way onto it. Like because we were lucky enough because when This Might Hurt come out, it was exactly the same time as Nicky Sixx released the second 6 a.m. record, This Is Gonna Hurt.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
We had this theory that he's gone to look at his own reviews and ended up stumbling across us. And then the next minute, like you know what I mean? Like, because there was talk, like, because Nicky posted the original video for Drink Fuck Fight back in the day when that first got released, and he really liked the band. So he put out on his Twitter, I check out these guys, they're great. And we were blown away. Like, we couldn't believe that Nicky Sixx even knew who he was. Yeah, fast forward to like a year later, like, because we heard there was going to be talks of Kiss and Motley Crue going out, and like they're thinking about you as a support. I'm like, oh yeah, all right, like, get us, you know what I mean, like. And then we were on tour with Steel Panther, and we were literally in the back of a transit van getting a meal deal or something like that. And then Nicky Sixx put out on his Twitter the treatment they're going to be the opening band for the biggest tour of the year with Kiss and Motley Crue. Welcome them aboard. We just couldn't believe it. Like, you know what I mean? Like the contrast of us being in a broken down transit and about to go out but like to 30,000 people across America. You know what I mean?
Eating your prawn mayo sandwich at like 2 in the morning. But what was it like when you was actually over there then? Because they're like,
it was unbelievable. Like, well, we first turned up, like, because we didn't know what to expect, and then the first gig was in Virginia. I think it was like Bristow, Virginia, and we walked in, and we were there a day early because basically Gene had invited us to go and watch. Because they, at the start of every tour, Kiss always do a gig only for veterans.
all right.
They invited us down to go and watch Kiss playing for all the American US veterans. And like, we're literally sitting there, like they're showing us around, like, this is where the catering's going to be and stuff. And then we're sitting there, and then Gene comes in, like, in his full makeup and stands behind my dad. And I'm seeing this, Dad isn't seeing this, and I've seen this. I'm like, oh my God, it's Gene. And then he just come up behind my dad and started giving him a shoulder massage. He's like, rubbing his shoulders. And then I think Top Gear ended up coming on the telly, and then he started being like, oh, have you seen my show? Like, in the UK, like, flicking his hair, talking about that rock school with little Chris and that.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's just really, like, surreal experience, you know what I mean? To, like, just be sat there having a one-to-one with him dressed in his full gear, you know what I mean?
Love it. Yeah, what are the fans like? Because it's something that I always think about a lot. Like, you chat to European bands, you know, and what were the fans like compared to the UK fans?
I think they loved the fact that we were English, to be honest, because not a lot of UK bands ever get to go out there. Like, I mean, I think the last UK band they probably saw was Def Leppard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, to have like a real British band over there, they loved it because we had, like, with our merch and stuff, we were like flying the Union Jack and all that sort of stuff. And they were just so responsive and like so like wanting to know about the band. You know what I mean? It was just, unfortunately, at that point we were set up with our label that didn't really have a base out there. So like I don't feel we really made the most of the exposure we were getting when we were over there. You know what I mean? But for when we were there, like, I think we got the figure at the start of the tour that it was going to cost us like 65 to 70 grand. Just on like bus fares and like, because we had a tour bus and that. We were like, how are we ever going to recoup from this? But we went down so well every night that we actually broke even from literally just us selling our merch at the desk.
That's mad.
So it was unbelievable. Like, we literally every night we would get mobbed.
No, that's sick, man. And I bet it leaves a lot of desires in you to want to go back over there.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think we were the first ever band to go out on a tour of that scale with just 5 guys and a manager. Like, we were setting up our own gear, setting up our own merch. Like, they couldn't believe it. They were like, we turned up on the first day, and the tour manager goes to my dad. He was like, "So, how many passes do you need, and how many guys are in your crew?" And he was just like, "Just us." I said, "No." Got to a point where our bus driver was doubling up as a roadie, like helping us out with our gear.
Love it. That's doing it proper though, man, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's what they respected about us as well, because they remember the days when they were like travelling in the station wagon and stuff, and like it brought them like a lot of memories back. You know what I mean? Especially with, like Nicky and Gene.
No, it's really cool, man. So the first time I actually saw you and the boys was supporting Slash in Brum in 2013. Yeah, and as Ryan said, like, I love the sound of that first album. I mean, it was like you said, that progression from metal. I was really into that sleazy, bluesy guitar stuff that you were doing. Like, particularly with Slash, I mean, you fitted the boys, the bill, just perfectly. At this point, you kind of really progressed forward as a band. I mean, there've been a few lineup changes, but I always think the most difficult one is to overcome as a vocalist, because it's kind of your identity. And yourself and the boys have had to face this on 2 occasions. How did it affect like the overall progression and like the identity of the band in terms of having to go through that stage of development twice?
I definitely think it held us back. Like, I'm not going to lie, in the sense it held us back. Like, because a lot of people did like that original lineup, and obviously we built momentum. We'd done a lot of big tours, and people were starting to get used to the name of the Sealers. And then, like, you know, I mean, we hit the second album, and then Matt leaves. It kind of it was a position where, like, you got 2 options. You either got to carry on and get someone else, or you call a band a day. And we weren't willing to end a band that we've at that point had spent like 7 years grafting away on. You know what I mean? So it come to then we ended up getting Mitch, and that drew a lot of like split opinions. You know what I mean? We gained a lot of new fans in that sense, because it was a slightly different direction to what we was, because Ems had a bit more of a commercial voice, you know what I mean, as opposed to Matt's kind of like gruff, like whiskey style vocals, you know what I mean. And I definitely think during Generation Me, the band went in a slightly different direction, you know what I mean. We had a bit of an image change that people were like split opinions on and stuff. But I feel that like it worked for the situation we was in that time, you know what I mean. But after Mitchell leaving, we knew we wanted to get back to how we used to be. And then I ended up coming across Tom on Facebook, and I thought, this guy's amazing. He sounds exactly like Matt used to. And we got him down for an audition, and it worked out great. And then we thought, you know what, like, we can finally get back on track to how we used to be and what we set out to sound like, you know what I mean?
So what you mentioned with Generation Me, was that an intentional sort of thing, or were you just riding the wave of when the new vocalist came in?
A bit of both, because you change the formula and it's going to be different, and you can't do this. We couldn't have done the same album with Ems as we did with Matt, you know what I mean?
And it wouldn't have been right. You'd have been forcing it, like you say.
And as well, we wanted to, you know what I mean, like, we're at a point as well where we wanted to try and push ourselves and try something a bit like different and outside the box, you know what I mean? Some people loved it, some people hated it, and then we moved on to the next album. Like, we're a band, and we don't ever want to just put ourselves in a box, you know what I mean? Because we want to, even though look, we've been through that, people won't be surprised if we release something a little bit different in the future, you know what I mean? So we don't want to be categorised as just one thing. Like, we always like to try and push ourselves out of our boundaries a bit. Sometimes it works out great, sometimes it don't. But I think that's being a band and an artist, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, speaking of that, now we're going to like the new album, which is Waiting for Good Luck, which is out April 9th. The single Rat Race obviously carries that signature treatment sound that's kind of followed you guys. But we both found, didn't we, that there was kind of more of an 80s influence with that? Was that an intended?
Yeah, it's got that like Def Leppard sort of feel, isn't it?
Yeah, man, big time.
Like, did that come naturally with you guys, or was?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we always work so close with my dad, who's also our producer and helps us with song arrangements and stuff. And yeah, like it just worked. Like, you know what I mean? We started messing around with all the BVs in the studio and like doubling up on harmonies and stuff like that. And then it just started to come together and like fall into place really quick. And that's what we've always been massive Def Leppard fans and stuff, so that's a little like kind of acknowledgement to them, you know what I mean? Like it's and as well, it's something we haven't really focused on our previous album. So it's nice to have some like bigger choruses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Like you said, with when you was going through it's all part of the overall journey, isn't it? I mean, Def Leppard are a great example because, like, in the early days, they were like new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
So I mean, they had like a much heavier sound, like with
Like Wasted and all that.
yeah, man. When then like Hysteria comes out, you know, it's kind of the album that they're kind of known for, and it's completely different from that, but it's still Def Leppard, you know. It's just moving forward, and I think it's important to give yourself that room to develop and change and be creative.
Without a doubt, like, there's no point in putting yourself in a box. Like, at the end of the day, you've got to make the music you want to make. Like, you've obviously got to bear in mind like your audience and your fans to a certain extent. But if you're just making an album for someone else's enjoyment, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be creative and you want to enjoy what you're doing as much as what the fans appreciate. You know what I mean?
Big time. So Kevin Shirley's mixed the new album. I mean, you mentioned about your dad obviously managing Roadstar back in the day, and I know Kevin did the original Roadstar album, which is a great sounding album. Is this the first time that you yourself and the boys have worked with Kevin, or have you done albums before with him?
So it's the first time we've worked with Kevin. Yeah, but I've known Kevin like since a kid, or known of Kevin as a kid. You know? Because Dad went out to do he went out to Malibu for the third. The second Roadstar album, Glass Mountain. He went out and did that with Kevin out there. So I was always very aware of his Kevin, even as a kid. So it was really cool to work with him. He's such a cool guy. Amazing what he does as well.
Yeah, man. That was the experience in terms of like recording the whole album and stuff. Like you say, with the backing vocals and kind of going to that next level as part of your development. Was Kevin a big part of that?
I'd say my dad was more driving the record.
Okay. Cool.
Whereas Kevin, he give a lot of input as opposed to like what we should leave and what we should cut. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of songs that we had where, you know what I mean, there was like loads of different vocal harmonies and stuff. But Kevin would be the guy. But I think this works better without this. So he'd mix it without that and then send it back to us, and we're like, you know what, you're right. Like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? But as far as like the production side, it was 95% Dad, but Kevin give his little inputs here and there whilst mixing. You know what I mean?
Cool. Obviously, you're chatting about Phil Rudd, and that's a massive part of like what I always think is. I think I saw an interview with Phil Rudd where it was like he loves the fact that he controls what makes the crowd tap their foot. Yeah. So you've got that identity in the band. I mean, do you bring anything else personally to the songwriting process? And how does that work overall as the band?
A lot of the time, it's literally just us in a room jamming, you know what I mean? And it'll come naturally, and we'll get a riff. If we like a riff, we'll pocket the riff, we'll go back to it. We might get another riff. Oh, this will be cool as a verse, this will be cool as a chorus, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It works. It's very much like it's like we jam and jam and jam, and then, you know what I mean, we get something cool come out of it. But as far as like my approach to the drumming side of things, I always like to keep stuff simple, because even though like you've got drummers like Neil Peart and like all these amazing technical drummers, people are still listening to the song and not like this feel at 1 minute 30. You know what I mean? So I always try to play what's best for the song and best for the arrangement, as opposed to like what's gonna boost my own ego. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, you got to serve the song, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's at the end of the day, like it's the backbeat of the song that will make people like bang their head and move to it. You know what I mean? So if you drop that rhythm, it doesn't necessarily always work. You know what I mean? If anything, it will hinder the song as opposed to improve it. You know what I mean? So that's why my approach has always been simpler than like more complicated when it comes to songs.
No, that's cool. If you could pick one song from the upcoming album then, Danny, to recommend to people to give a listen when it comes through the post, what would it be for you personally?
It's one of the things, I'm so close to the whole album, so it's really hard to choose. But I'd say Eyes on You is probably one of my favourites, because it's definitely one of the best riffs that we've recorded to date, in my opinion. Just got that kind of real, like, southern kind of, like nasty kind of swing to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
I love them kind of, I've always loved them sort of shuffle, sort of feel songs, you know what I mean?
No, that's cool. We love a good riff, don't we?
Yeah.
Especially a southern riff. Fucking proper tickles me, that does.
Yeah.
So this is a question that we try to ask a lot of people that come on. What's life for you away from the stage? Like what kind of things have you like to get up to in your spare time?
To be honest, not really that much. Like we focus on the band 24/7. You know what I mean? We do what we do to survive. Like we get by when we're not touring, and then we're back on the band. You know what I mean? Like all we think about is how we're going to improve as a band, how we're going to improve as players, what we need to do to get to that next step. You know what I mean? Everything is focused around the band. You know what I mean? So we don't really find time to do anything else. You know what I mean? Because we're all here for the same reason. So rather than doing nothing, we might as well just go and jam, or we might as well like write a song, or we might as well like start looking at other bands for like inspiration. You know what I mean? We're always just constantly doing something to improve or evolve the band. You know what I mean?
We're chatting about it on off air, really. I imagine that's why, like, you guys have probably struggled so much with lockdown and the pandemic. Then,
yeah,
because it's kind of like if that's your main energy and your main purpose.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like as well last year as well. After coming off tour with Buck Cherry and stuff, we started to make waves again because obviously getting Tom in the band is taking a little while to get the momentum going again with the live like gigging and stuff. And then we had a tour pretty much booked for the whole 2020. Like we were going to go to Sweden, do a load of cruise rock festivals. We were getting like moved into the big room at KK Steel Mill and all that sort of stuff. So we were really like starting to put like build a reputation back again. And then obviously it all got cancelled. So it's just one of them things. It's just frustrating because we don't feel that we've like. You know what I mean? I don't think we've achieved what we know what we're gonna. You know what I mean? At the moment, we're just being held back.
The good important thing to remember, though, man, because I had a similar thing with me and the boys, is that everyone's been put on pause, haven't they? You know, at least you guys have gone out, gone away and fucking done the album and got everything ready.
I mean, it's comforting to know in the sense that, like, you know what I mean, your band is also going to be in the same position as Metallica. You know what I mean?
Yeah, big time.
It's not just like smaller bands, like even like the big bands that are in the same boat. You know what I mean? So it's a bit comforting in that sense that you've got the support of like the whole music industry. You know what I mean? That everyone understands what everyone's going through at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. Now, obviously, we spoke about it again off air. Like, we're at that tentative point now where we've had the recent news that all being well, live music will return in one form or another in the coming months. I mean, what plans do you and the boys have to celebrate the new album?
Well, yeah, we're just trying to push it as much as we can, like online at the moment. But yeah, I mean, we're just literally taking it baby steps. Like, we don't want to, because there's been like a lot of bands that have like been like, great, we've got the news, we're going to book a tour, then that gets cancelled, they reschedule it, that gets cancelled. We don't want to do that. We don't want to keep like leaving people like wondering when this show is ever going to happen. You know what I mean? So we're literally just going to ride it online and on social media and stuff until we've finally got a date and we see that there are gigs going ahead, and then we'll probably plan to like mainly gig for next year. Maybe we're like do a couple of gigs that are meant to be rescheduled like this year, but like as far as fully touring, it'll like most likely be next year.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's fair, man. It's difficult, innit? Like you say, you don't want to disappoint the fans, because I think everyone's been through that feeling of stuff gets planned, people get excited, and then you've just got to pull it away from them again.
And not only that, though, it's like we don't want to have to fork out all the money to begin with on the tour just to lose it on van hires and that sort of stuff when, you know what I mean, when it don't happen.
Yeah, no, I respect that.
Fair enough. Finally, I like to kind of finish this one, like asking everybody this one. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could choose one band from the past and one band from the present to tour with, who would they be?
I guess AC/DC is always in there. Like that's what goes without saying. You know, I think AC/DC would be like the ultimate band for us to go out with, whether it's back in the day or now. Yeah, I don't know. Like the problem is a lot of our idols we've ended up gigging with. Like, so it's hard to actually pin down. But I'd love to go out with. I'd love to do that Kiss and Motley Crue tour all over again. So it's one of the times of our lives. And Alice Cooper as well. That was another amazing time.
I can imagine, man.
But we just live to play, so it doesn't really matter if it's like in a stadium or a pub. You know what I mean? We just live to play and put on a show.
No, I respect that, and I think that connects really well with DC as well. That was the vibe I always got with DC, particularly like 70s DC. You know, it's that they just go out anywhere, and it doesn't matter, and they'll give you absolutely 110%.
Yeah, you look at photos of Bon Scott, you know, with no teeth, like nearly 30, like 1970. I think this is going to be the next superstar. Do you know? I don't think anyone would have believed him.
They fucking scruff ass, weren't he?
Yeah.
What are you? Sorry, we had this chat with someone. Was it with John from Dust Cody? We had this chat. Yeah, are you a Bon Scott or a Brian Johnson guy? 'Cause we're Bon
Scott, without a doubt.
Yeah, we're the same, man.
I always say this.
Yeah.
I love AC/DC, but past Back in Black are kind of it's tracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like up until from like 75 to 80, their albums are untouchable, and then after that, it's just great tracks on each album, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And Bon Scott had this soul, like you say, he was a bit of a renegade. Like he looked like he was born in the ground. He just had this vibe about him.
He was just the real deal, wasn't he? Like he was like he'd already toured the world with like before DC, you know what I mean? He basically lived his life before he'd even joined AC/DC. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of them like them characters that you knew that he wasn't going to be there forever. You know what I mean? Like what a legacy he left. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, man. Well put. Cool, Wiz. Yeah, let's say it's a difficult one with you with the hypothetical because you've kind of you've already done what most people's pick would be. Yeah, like the Kiss crew thing is pretty much like the height.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, as I said, yeah, we just like to relive them all again. You know what I mean? Hopefully we will get that chance in the future.
Yeah, hopefully, man. All right, brilliant. Thanks, Danny, for chatting to us today. The Treatment's new album, Waiting for Good Luck, is out April 9th via Frontier Records. If you haven't already, make sure you check out the new single, Rat Race, and give The Treatment some love on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all them lovely things. Cheers, Danny. Appreciate it, man.
So that was Danny from The Treatment.
I really liked Danny's. I mean, you teased it a little bit before the interview, right? But I like his honesty, you know, about the fact that they... Because I think it's always a difficult thing from being in the band myself, that when you've tried things, and you might know yourself, like they might not have words, but he had this real positive spin on it, that it's just part of the band developing and growing, you know. And we talk a lot about this because we struggle with bands that have, like with Black Stone, for example, you know, have gone more for that sort of dad rock, southern kind of ZZ Top sound. From our perspective, as like a young fan who loved them first two albums, it's difficult because we're like, oh, what are you doing, man? You know, but at the same time, when you're in a band, you want to grow and you want to try new things, and I liked his enthusiasm around that, you know.
Yeah, it was interesting how he talked about, you know, when he found the new singer that they have now, there was kind of this like, oh, you know, we can really get back to what we want to be doing.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting, and I feel like they're now doing some, you know, that they've made an album that they feel is, you know, where they want to be, like sonically.
Yeah, I agree. And I loved Danny's enthusiasm around the album. He seemed really excited about it, and his desire to go back on the road. You know, it was cool when they spoke about the time when they went out with Kiss and Motley Crue. You know, and you could see Danny's kind of like excitement, but also frustration that they've not been able to go back and do that again, you know. So it's trying to give them an album and a platform to go and do that, you know, because obviously it was massive for them, but it was almost came too early in their career, which I think Danny kind of says himself in the interview, you know. So it'd be nice for this album through Frontier to give them that platform to go back to the States and kind of pick up on the ground that they built that first time round.
So hopefully that'll do well. That's it for this week, but if you'd like to follow us on Facebook and all those kind of things like Instagram and stuff, we put out a new teaser for our new guest every Wednesday. So you gotta go and check that out.
Yes, we're also obviously on YouTube, which is probably where you're watching our horrible mugs right now. If you're not, come and check us out on YouTube, because you get to look at horrible mugs.
Well, this is it. If you're on Spotify, as I will say, what are you doing?
You always have a go at the Spotify crowd.
What are you doing on there? Like, all right, Apple Podcasts as well. Like, if there's anybody on there right now, you know what? If you're still listening and not watching, what are you doing? You know? It's
disgraceful, man. You know, and this does upset Ryan. You know, so do it for Ryan.
Yes, I'm investing in all this kit. I got some fancy lights this week.
All this kit, man.
Got some fancy lights. You know, you're missing out.
You're missing out hard. But if you are one of the good people that are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. like the video, share the video, bring the love, and we'll see you all next week.
Yes, see you next week.